Welcome into Giants Postgame Live, presented by Mercedes-Benz, the official luxury automobile of the New York Football Giants. I'm Madelyn Burke here with Paul Dottino and Dots. Giants fans hoping for a Festivus miracle have a few more grievances to air after this Eagles game right there. Giants went down to the link, fell to Philly 34-10. Tough game to watch.
Well, you know, Madelyn, they start out getting that 3 points, right? They get the opening field goal, and you're saying to yourself, well, maybe something's going to start to happen here. Jake Fromm gets his first NFL start, and then suddenly things start to go sour. And before you know it, the avalanche hits. The defense did everything they could to keep this game close for one half. We've seen this now many times over the last couple of months where the water starts seeping through the dam, and they're trying to hold up, and they're trying to hold up, and they're trying to hold up just to keep the team competitive, and then before you know it, the dam finally breaks and it's an avalanche.
Absolutely, and there's only so much the defense can do when the offense is struggling. As you mentioned, Jake Fromm getting his first career start against perhaps one of the best front fours in the league. That's a tough start for the young quarterback. He didn't make it through the whole game, though. The Giants changed quarterbacks, went to Mike Glennon in the second half. We've got their stats here, too. Let's take a look. But what was your impression of the young guy at first?
I thought that Fromm looked nervous to me because I saw him play at Georgia. He was much more poised, showed a lot more leadership, was accurate. He was a very, very promising backup quarterback prospect in the National Football League when he was a fifth-round choice of the Bills last year. The guy that I saw in the first half today looked to me like the lights were a little too bright. Now, I don't necessarily know how much of the playbook he knew. Remember, we heard from him after last week's game when he played the two-minute drill against Dallas that he knew about 60% of the playbook. We don't know how much he actually knew today going into this game. But what we do know is he was much more inaccurate than I expected to see him in the first half of this game.
Right, and well, a little bit of familiarity, right? I mean, you mentioned his time in Georgia. He's faced Jalen Hurts in that 2018 college football playoff when Hurts was at Alabama, but it's been a long time since then. There's a big difference between college football championship and an NFC East game at the Link in Philadelphia. The third quarter, though, the Giants come out. Joe Judge says, hey, I need to see something from this offense. This game was tied 3-3 at the half. And, you know, by the fourth quarter, this one got a little bit out of hand, 34-3. But when they went to Mike Glennon, things just coming out of the locker room, they weren't seeing the movement there that they needed to.
No, I think it's clear to me that at that point, you know, Joe Judge just pretty much said to himself, okay, we know the rookie's having trouble here swimming. It's deep water for him. Eagles have the lead. We're going to have to come back. We're going to have to throw a lot. That means Philly's going to be able to cheat against the run by just going for the pass and trying to get after the QB. Understanding that's a very, very difficult position to put Fromm in. So I think he went to the veteran simply because he thought that Glennon's experience would allow him to survive in the second half after Philly started to pull away.
Right, and a tough situation for this Giants team as well. Shutting down Daniel Jones for the season. He's on IR with that neck injury. So they're kind of battling between, okay, which of these backups is our safety net right now? This is the first time since 1992 the Giants franchise has started three different quarterbacks. In 92, we saw Phil Simms, Jeff Hostetler, and Kent Graham getting the starts over there. And so it's been a while since we've seen that kind of rotation. But let's talk about the defense a little bit, because you mentioned off the top, you know, that defense did enough, especially early on, to give this Giants team a chance. This is the 15th straight game. They've allowed less than 7 points in that first quarter. Coming out strong is important for this team.
Well, you look at the first half numbers, Madelyn, and the Eagles were only 1 of 7 on third down opportunities. I would sign up as a defensive coordinator for that any day of the week. 149 total yards of offense to that point. Very, very respectable. Hurts was 7 of 17 for less than 90 yards, had gotten sacked once. Eagles had rushed for only 60, a team that was running for 165 yards a game.
175,
during the course of the season. Well, in the recent stretch, right. 175. So I had no problem with the way this defense was holding up and keeping the Giants in the ball game, but they just could not get any traction offensively.
And Dots, you've covered this Giants team for the better part of 4 decades. You've been watching the Giants team, you know, for your entire life. When you look at the way that this team is right now and the struggles that they've had, how do you put that into perspective?
It's very difficult. I remember going back to 1978 when Joe Pisarcik was the quarterback. The Giants went through 11 consecutive games without not scoring more than 17 points in a game. And, you know, you look at it and you say to yourself, well, wait a second. Look at the players they have on offense right now. Look at some of these guys. You know, back in those days, back in the day, I should say, they didn't have the kind of players that they have now.
Right.
So you say, how is this not working? Ultimately, it still comes down to not being able to get a ground game going. Because if you can't win the line of scrimmage and at least keep people honest and run the ball when you want to be able to run the ball, things are going to be extremely difficult. And ultimately, that's really what it comes down to.
Well, in the ground game, too, as you mentioned, not just the running game, but also that offensive line. We saw Nate Solder was out. Matt Peart goes down early in this game. So Corey Cunningham comes in. That's got to be a tough way to navigate.
It is a tough situation, but to be frank with you, I thought Cunningham actually did an admirable job for a guy who was being thrown in a very difficult situation. You know, you talk about the run game, though, and I have to say this because on the first half, 18 carries for 65 yards. Barkley only had 27 yards rushing in the first half on 12 tries. Once again, it comes down to how many times are we watching the game and we're seeing whether it's Booker or Barkley getting the handoff and immediately they've got somebody in their faces.
Right.
And that's just, I don't care how fast, how many jukes you have. If there's a guy right there when you're taking that handoff, there's just not any room to run.
There's not going to be a lot of room to run. But we've got a lot more to discuss after this quick break. We're going to be back with a lot more here on Giants Postgame Live. But first, guests of our postgame show received a gift certificate to Ben & Jack's, located on 44th Street in Manhattan. From the celebrated porterhouse to finer seafood, Ben & Jack's will surpass your expectations of what a steakhouse should be. After the break, we'll hear from head coach Joe Judge and much more as Giants Postgame Live presented by Mercedes-Benz continues after this. As we wind down to the end of the season, don't miss your chance to snag some Giants merch. Enter the Giants Postgame Live Watch and Win sweepstakes to win a signed replica helmet signed by Sterling Shepard. To be eligible to win, just scan the QR code on the screen or go directly to msgnetworks.com. And don't forget to use this week's keyword, which is whiteout. Sign up, use the keyword, and you could be the big winner. Good luck, and thank you for watching with consistency, because this is a nice little giveaway we've got every week. You know, giving those Giants fans some merch. It's the holiday season. You want to have those little pieces of memorabilia to remember the good times and the bad. You know, these Giants fans are diehards. But, you know, Paul, we were talking a little bit about the defense, right? The defense has been kind of a constant for this team and giving this Giants team an opportunity to win these games. James Bradbury has, you know, accomplished some impressive individual stats today. If we pull up his stats for the game, his pass defense, 15 passes defense in the last 2 seasons, ties Jason Sehorn. I mean, look at the company he's keeping right here.
That's at least 15. Last season, he had 18. And remember, they didn't start keeping pass defenses as a statistic until 1999. Now, you'll see down at the bottom there, ties Giants' single-season record, 13th game with a pass defense this season. That's C. Webby. Corey Webster had 24 in 2008 on the year, and that is an all-time Giants single-season record. Again, they've only started keeping this stat since 1999.
Right, but still, that's, you know, a good 22 years right there in the making, and that's a solid stat to have. And, you know, it's great to see these players with their individual success, but it's hard when it doesn't translate to team wins, right? And I'm sure any of these guys would say, hey, I'm glad I'm in the record books in that way, but they would trade it in a heartbeat for some more wins. How does a team do that? How do you position individual success?
Well, the hope is that if each of your guys does their job, and we've heard that now from a number of different guys over the course of the week when they meet with the media, do your job. Logan Ryan, in fact, is one who really likes to talk about that very much, because if each individual guy does what he's supposed to do and fulfills his responsibility, then he doesn't have to worry about trying to cover up for somebody else who may not be doing things exactly the way they're supposed to be done. Because when you do that, that's when guys get caught out of position and things get sloppy.
Absolutely. And we've got another perspective on this one as well, as we're going to send it out to Philadelphia, where Bob Papa and Howard Cross, who are on the radio call for this one, are standing by with more. Fellas?
All right, Howard, when you take a look at this game, at halftime, the Giants had the game where they needed to have it, right? They needed to make it ugly. They needed to make it muddy. They needed to make it low scoring, and then once that interception happened, the kind of wheels fell off. When you're down on the field and you're watching this, just talk a little bit about their inability to get anything sustained offensively.
Well, you know, it's one of those things that was going to happen anyway. When you start a quarterback that hasn't been in the league that long, hadn't had a start anywhere, you're going to bring him into a game where the Eagles, and they're trying to play for something important, you were expecting them to have a hard time. So you got to be creative, you got to be imaginative, and your offensive line's got to make some blocks. They didn't do any of that, especially in the third quarter when they first started. They needed to make a first down. That first hit, even though it was a face mask, I get it. He throws an interception, momentum went in the Eagles' favor. They couldn't bounce back.
You know, even at the end of the first half, they tried to run the ball, and Barkley got nothing. I mean, he didn't have a shot on a couple of the runs. It's a recurring theme. Look, this is something we've been talking about for years now, but their inability to really ever control the line of scrimmage, it's hard for anything else to function when you're looking at the offensive side of the ball.
They're going to figure out a way to put like 5 guys together. They're going to be able to have some continuity play for the entire year, and then get 2 or 3 guys they know that can be backups, can be not journeymen, but utility guys all over the offensive line. Right now, they're playing with guys that are maybe second and third guys, and guys that are coming in off the street, and they're trying to make it work. It's just not working.
You know, and you know, I know the final score, there were 34 points on the board by Philadelphia. I thought the Giant defense, for the most part, played pretty good. I mean, listen, when you're giving Philadelphia short fields on back-to-back possessions to start the third quarter, twice they started at the 21-yard line of the Giants. They scored 10 points out of those first 2 trips. But now you got to start taking chances. And then when you're going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, guys do eventually wear down.
Well, they get worn down. They also call a short field more than just on the punt and the interception or stuff like that. They just kept catching a short field. You can't keep guys out over and over. Plays that were happening that were strange, like they couldn't get the interceptions. And the reason why? The balls were like punts. The ball would get thrown up in the air, get caught up in the air. The receiver would take the time to cut the play off and make the play. You don't make those plays. If you don't make them, bad things happen.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to gain or gather out of this other than one, along with a million other things that this Giants team has to fix in the offseason, starting with the offensive line. They got to find a legitimate backup quarterback, because that could be the difference between a win or a loss that decides things down the stretch.
I think they need to find a competitive quarterback that can actually compete with Daniel, push Daniel, push the whole team forward. If they don't have that, they're going to have a hard time.
All right, obviously disappointment here in Philadelphia. Again, the Giants in the third quarter and early fourth quarter, this game got out of reach. Not enough offense to come back and make things different, as we send it back to the studio.
Thanks so much, fellas. And, you know, as you mentioned, the third, fourth quarter, especially that third quarter, Paul, I mean, Giants and Eagles tied at 3 at the half, but then that third quarter, things broke wide open. I mean, by the fourth quarter, Eagles are up 34-3. What happened there?
Well, let's look at the third quarter for just a second here, Madelyn, because at 3-3, you get the interception, which sets Philadelphia up on a 5-play, 21-yard scoring drive. They get the touchdown. Now it's 10-3, and you're like, okay, that's a little bit of air out of the balloon, but maybe not too bad. But then a sack on the next series begins the Giants on a 3-and-out, and they give up a 39-yard punt return to Rieger, which, by the way, is the longest punt return the Giants have given up this season. So that was a special teams breakdown. So the defense is doing everything it can, offense is struggling, then special teams stubs its toe, and now the Eagles convert that into a field goal, and it's 13-3. Now you're down by 2 scores, and things start to get real hairy.
And this is when the Giants make the shift to Glennon at that point after that Rieger return. But then, you know, the Eagles right away, that Devontae Smith touchdown, which the toe drag swag touchdown, which the officials reviewed and called it no touchdown, took the points off the board, then reviewed again and called it a touchdown, put the points back on the board.
Well, think about this for just a second. Scoring drives of the Eagles of 21 yards, 2 yards, and 57 yards. And the score goes from 3-3 to 20-3. I mean, that's really the story of this game.
Yeah, it really opened it right up, and I think that right there kind of took it from something that was containable and workable to something out of control. And then after that, you're seeing Lane Johnson getting a touchdown. And when you see that, you know things are a little rough. All right, we've got a lot more coming up on the show. After the break, we'll hear from head coach Joe Judge and much more. You're watching Giants Postgame Live, presented by Mercedes-Benz, the official luxury automobile of the New York Giants. Today's matchup between the Giants and Eagles was presented by Ford, the official vehicle of the New York Football Giants. As we welcome you back to the program, Giants fell to the Eagles 34-10. We now send it out to Philadelphia, where we'll hear from head coach Joe Judge.
All right, guys, so, obviously we didn't do enough to have success today on the field. I thought for the most part our defense did a good job of keeping us in the game. Up until the punt return, our special teams did good things for field position, giving us an opportunity to go ahead and play. We couldn't get anything going offensively today. We obviously have to have some kind of production in that phase to complement the offense, to complement the defense, and the special teams when they're making plays for us. But ultimately, it wasn't good enough. We had to go back to work this week. A lot of things got to improve on. I'm looking to see these guys finish strong, go out competing. We had a good week of work with the guys. I count on seeing the same thing this week going to Chicago. That being said, open any questions you have.
Took half of the game, that turnover kind of got things going for them, and then from there on, talk about what the board they kind of turned to put the.
Well, look, obviously you can't start the second half off with a turnover, and that led to the touchdown right there that made it 10-3. And then we didn't have a good punt, and the coverage, had a couple missed tackles, gave them field position right there. Then all of a sudden it's 13-3. Now, look, it's still a two-possession game with a lot of ball to play. Like, that can't be a situation where all of a sudden it feels insurmountable. All right, you just got to go ahead and play one play at a time, one drive at a time, and keep playing the game. Look, the reality of it is, you go through the first half, our defense played as well as we could ask them to. We had opportunities for turnovers. We were attacking the ball. We had things that you say, okay, keep on attacking the ball. Something's going to come our way right there. The kicking game was doing a good job giving us field position, not really letting the return game get started. I was happy with the way those two phases were playing. Obviously, offensively, we couldn't get anything going right there. And when you start playing, 2 out of 3 phases, you've got to make sure that third phase can come through and give you something right there. We knew it was going to be kind of a slug-it-out type of game for us to have success. We saw an element of that in the first half. You don't want to play with some limitations we had in the first half. However, when you go to the second half, there were a couple things. They had the shot down the field. It led them getting some more points. And then the 2 late touchdowns right there, 2 inexcusable things that happened.
Joe, without looking at film, what did you see up front today? It looked like he was a little jumpy, some passes early, just never got the rhythm.
Well, look, obviously we didn't do anything good enough on offense right there. So, I'll watch the tape and I'll break down him, Mike as well and all that stuff. I decided to make the move going from Jake to Mike because we weren't getting anything going offensively, and I thought there were some opportunities that we did have in the first half and early in the second half that I had to get something in there going to give ourselves a chance, to make some plays that I thought were out there for us to make.
Obviously, it was a struggle. What do you say to him, about the whole first half? What do you say at halftime, and then ultimately when you have to decide to make that move?
Who, Jake?
Yeah.
You're a young player. You got to learn and develop and to do. All right? This is the early part of a career. So you've got to learn from what happened today. You've got to make improvements. You've got to make improvements on execution. Obviously, decision-making will improve throughout time, but, he's got to come back to work on Wednesday like everybody else.
The quarterback play you've got, how do you prevent that from just kind of dragging down the rest of the team?
Look, I'm going to look at the tape before I go ahead and make any, huge statements on that right there, but obviously you've got to get, significant play out of key positions, all right? But we've got to execute everything better. Offensively, nothing was really good enough today. We got to make sure we come back to work, and we got to give ourselves a chance. And we got to capitalize on the opportunities that are in front of us. And when you watch the tape normally, and you sit there and you're watching on the sidelines, you talk through different plays and scenarios, and you say, okay, we've got this that are there. We got to get back to this and give ourselves a chance. Make sure we don't lose an opportunity on this again. You got to, make the emphasis getting back to something when it's there. But you got to capitalize on the opportunities when they give them to you. Most teams in this league aren't going to give you a second swing of the bat. So when something's there the first time, you got to make your shot. Oh, it was a situation of the game. Just situation of the game right there. He's got some bumps and bruises, right there. I thought Saquon, played hard. Obviously, we couldn't get enough going for him right there. But that was just a decision we made right there at the end of the game.
Joe, you mentioned at the start, after the turnover, the start of the second half, it was a 2-score game.
Yep.
That can't be an insurmountable lead right there.
Yeah, correct.
Did you get any sense that some of these guys, with this repeated failure, are kind of feeling that? Like, we can't come back, it's not working, it's not happening here?
No, I saw our defense consistently take the field with the right demeanor and the right attitude. I really did. And they made some shots, in the second half, some chunk plays get on down. There's the one right there that was throwing the throwback into the deep post. It was a big play by them making that and put them in position for some more points. But the one thing about our defense I'm always proud of, and you can see it all the way at the end of the game on the stop right there on 4th and short. One thing they do is, defense never decides, when they're going to take the field. They decide how they're going to take the field. And they always decide to take it with the right demeanor. I'm proud of the way those guys fight like that. Okay, they practice the right way. They got the right demeanor. They really play as a unit together. I see a lot of individual improvement. I see a lot of collective improvement in that phase of the game. Obviously, I've talked all the time about, how you have to play and build a team, so I'm proud of a lot of the guys on defense in terms of how they're pushing forward, how they're playing, how they're competing. They did a lot of things to keep us in the game today. And then obviously, if you can't do anything, offensively to really get the ball moving, that sets you behind, and there's not too much more defense can do to hang on there.
Joe, I realize execution was obviously an issue, but did you have problems at any point in the game today with effort? And if not, why not?
I saw our guys fighting. Look, I'll watch the tape, and anything I see in terms of loaf or anything, obviously we'll address. I didn't see. I saw those guys out there fighting and pushing on through. Obviously, you see a lot of those, extended drives at the end of the game, where there's a lot of, open, empty sets and running back and forth. A lot of times you'll see some of, just natural. You get 3-4 plays in a row. Receivers aren't moving at top speed all the way right there. We try and rotate them, keep them fresh. But no, I didn't see anybody necessarily in that realm right there.
Joe, you'll go back to Mike next week?
We'll decide based on how they practice. We'll see how these guys do.
Joe, there was a report earlier today that I think ownership of the team believes in you and Daniel into next season. Do you feel any differently coaching a game after something like that is made public in support of you?
Just in regards to any kind of reports like that ever, I'm never going to comment on hypotheticals on jobs, mine or anybody else's. So that's just a blanket statement you're going to always hear from me, no matter what it is on who. So
Well, have you been told by ownership?
I'm never going to comment on anything hypothetically about jobs, mine or anybody else's. I appreciate the question. I understand what you guys are asking. It doesn't matter if you're asking about me, Pat Graham, Jerry Shaplinsky, Jerome Henderson. I'm just telling you, I'm never going to comment on that in a press conference, guys. I appreciate what you have to ask. Completely understand it. Just understand the way I'm going to answer the question.
Joe, you mentioned the idea that it can't seem like it's insurmountable
Right.
when they get up double digits. Do you have a sense that guys on the offense that really has been struggling since Daniel went out, that there are some guys that you have to convince that it's not insurmountable?
I think the encouraging thing is when I keep talking to the skill group and the offensive line on the sideline, we talk about going back out there and say it's a 2-possession game. We got to get back in this. They got the right look in the eyes. They're still going out there to compete. All right, they're still going out there to fight right there the entire time. So you talk about, okay, what's the situation in the game? 1 point is a 17-point game, right? So I had to go out there and talk to them. Okay, guys, here's where we're at. It's 3 possessions. This is what we're looking at. We're approaching the fourth quarter right now. This is what we're thinking about. 4-down territory. We're thinking about onside kicks. We're thinking about different situational calls. They're locked in. They're glued into that right there. Okay, so they're still in there, and they understand that we're going to go ahead and we're going to go out there and we're going to fight to the end.
What were you saying to the receivers in the first half there when you got it?
At which point?
You just gathered 5 different receivers together, a couple drives into the game.
I talked to them several times, throughout the game. A lot of it was about, expecting what kind of coverage they're playing, what that's going to do in terms of some of the calls we're making, contested catches, blocking in the run game, things of that nature. So it was more schematic type approach.
What did the officials say about that reversal? Was the reversal?
They just said it was in New York. They reversed it, and then they came back and they said, hey, New York's looking at it right there. And then they just told me, hey, they're going to count as a touchdown. There's not much more you can do right there. We can't challenge scoring plays. So right there, you're just kind of sitting there and waiting. You get a lot of communication from guys in the booth in terms of what they're looking at on TV and the replays. So, what you're really looking at in a situation like that is, what you're seeing on TV, but ultimately it's what the officials see and what New York sees.
Kadarius, he had a short week, obviously. He came back. What do you see from him? Is he kind of getting to the year?
I mean, obviously, he was on a short week coming back, so with only a couple of days of going and really still part of that ramp up off that COVID deal right there, the package put together for him was considering the situations, wanted to really get him in there. There were some times we were able to get him in multiple plays in a row, which was something we weren't sure about, getting with him right there as far as the conditioning part of it. But he fought through a lot of things, and when he had the ball come his way with some opportunities, he was able to get the ball in space, make some plays, and get it vertical, convert some things.
Joe, you talk a lot about the product you put on the field.
Yep.
How does a result like this sit?
It's not good enough. At point blank. I'm not going to make excuses or try and, church it up right there, Dan. The reality is this. You play to win the game, right? You coach to win the game. You coach to give the players an opportunity and a chance. So while there's things in every game you look at and say they're positive and build on that, and there's individual performances or unit performances that you say, okay, this is what we're looking for. Collectively, it's not good enough. Okay, collectively, it's not good enough. So we got to do better next week. Okay. All right, thanks, guys.
That sound from head coach Joe Judge is brought to you by Ford. And as you heard him say, collectively, it's not good enough. We heard him emphasizing just the inability for the Giants to get anything going on offense. And Dodds, last week, Mike Glennon gets the start. He doesn't play as well as they'd like to see, so they pull him and put Jake Fromm in. This week, Jake Fromm gets the start. He doesn't play as well as the Giants would like to see. They pull him and put Mike Glennon in. How do you navigate this circumstance with 2 games remaining?
Well, I think Joe Judge is handling this thing right, to be honest with you. He's saying there's going to be another competition at practice. this week, and I think that makes a lot of sense because, look, we've seen Mike Glennon for about 3.5 games now, and we know that he's been inconsistent and he's been somewhat erratic. I think moving forward, the guy who's really an unknown is Jake Fromm. Now, we've seen him for only a half, all right, basically. And to me, again, I don't know if the spotlight got to his stomach, the butterflies, the nerves. The Giants have 2 more games left to play this season to find out what Jake Fromm really is. He's going to tell us, I'm sure, when we get a chance to talk to him, that he didn't put his best foot forward in Philadelphia today. And I understand that. But maybe it was just the jitters of making his first NFL start. Maybe when we see more of him, we will see something there that we can chew on because the Giants have already said, Daniel Jones himself and Joe Judge said they've already talked, and Daniel Jones is the starter going into next year. They need to know who the number 2 guy is. Maybe Fromm can still fix this situation and be in that mix.
Well, and to be considered as well is the fact that Fromm's only been on this Giants roster for 26 days, getting his first career NFL start today in Philadelphia. It's a big moment for the kid. So
No doubt.
lots I'm sure we'll see from him in the future. And we've got more coming up on the show after the break. We're going to hear from Giants defensive back Julian Love. That and much more as Giants Postgame Live presented by Mercedes-Benz continues after this. Today's scoring drive of the game is brought to you by Investors Bank. At the official New York Giants checking account only from Investors Bank. Visit investorsbank.com/Giants for more details. For the scoring drive, we bring you to the second quarter. 11 plays, 39 yards. Took 4 minutes and 43 seconds off the clock, capped by a 54-yard field goal by Graham Gano, his 7th field goal of 50 or more yards this season, tied for 10th most in a season in NFL history. And that's a wrap for your Investors Bank scoring drive of the game. Paul, Graham Gano has been such a bright spot, such a consistent success for the Giants team.
He really has, Madelyn. You know, today he wound up eclipsing 100 points for the second year. And we get a look at this graphic now. You see 100 points this season, 5th player in franchise history to have 2 or more 100-point seasons. Now, I'm going to go way back into the archive and tell you that Don Chandler was the first one to do that back in the early 60s, followed by Jay Feely, Lawrence Tynes, and Josh Brown. And Gano joins that club right here today.
Leave it to Paul Dottino to bring us back into the archives. This man is a wealth of knowledge, not just with the Giants, but with the NFL. Gotta love those stats, those
I'll get my
throwbacks.
Geritol during the break.
There we go, there we go. But, you know, you expect the kicker to kind of be a high-scoring position because really every time he's in play, he's getting points. But 100 points is a lot.
Yeah, it really is. And the thing that the Giants really love about him is not only is he a big-time threat, you know, inside the 40 where he's virtually perfect, but he also makes the 50-plus yarders and is really good at the scientific maneuvers with the kickoffs. Doesn't just boom them through the end zone. Sometimes they go with the mortar kicks because they want their kick coverage to take care of business. He does those very well, too. He's just a terrific, terrific kicker.
Absolutely. Well, Graham Gano was scoring some points today. The Giants offense, not so much. The defense had their work cut out for them as well as they faced an Eagles offense. The run-heavy, usually Eagles offense, that was airing it out later in the game. And Giants defensive back Julian Love was asked about that as we head down to Philadelphia to hear him at the podium.
Obviously, they were taking some shots, and for us, it was just, you know, kind of we had some one-offs. I thought we were playing solid most of the game, and then we just had, you know, a few one-off plays, which, you know, at defense, we're going to try to eliminate.
How do you feel at halftime? It's 3-3. You feel like, you know, obviously your offense was struggling. You feel like at least we're keeping our team in the game here?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we were at halftime. We were where we wanted to be on defense. We wanted it to be a really just kind of gritty, grinded out type of game. And up until half, we were doing that. And, you know, now it's just finishing the game, and we didn't execute the way we were in the first half.
As a defense, you let up, I think it was 324 yards, which isn't a bad number in the NFL. How do you make sense of it that, you know, you guys are letting up 34 points, but as a unit, you kind of seem to be holding your own?
Yeah, it's weird. It was definitely a weird game to kind of look at. I got to look at the film some more, but in terms of, you know, stats, it might be a little wonky. You know, in terms of field position, I think we got to do better on defense and special teams to get better field position for us, and that's where some of that yardage comes into play. And yeah, I think executing in the red zone. I thought we've been really good this year executing in the red zone, and today we weren't as sharp, unfortunately. And so, you know, I know guys are ready to get back after it, but I think that's kind of where you see those numbers coming from.
Is it wearing on you that the offense isn't scoring points?
Man, I try not to deal with what's going on the offense. I really just try to be the best I can be on defense and special teams and where I'm on the field. And so I think I'm focused on that.
Julian, what happened on the throwback to deep one? Did you lose it in the sun at all? Or?
No, I didn't. I just, I was trying to make the pick. I was trying to make the play, and he got under me, and he was just in a better position. And so, on that, I got to look at it again. But for sure, I'd handle it differently. But yeah, I was being a little aggressive, trying to go for the pick, the clean pick, and I should have just knocked the ball down.
That sound from Julian Love was brought to you by Ford. After the break, we're going to hear from both Giants quarterbacks, Jake Fromm and Mike Glennon. Will head to the podium to address the media. Stay with us here. We've got lots more to come on Giants Postgame Live, presented by Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, I mean, I was juiced up. I was ready to go. I was excited. I mean, obviously, wish the ball would have been exactly where I wanted it to be, but I was amped up and ready to go, and I guess maybe the first couple got away from me.
What do you make of the whole experience?
No, I'd say it's not an ideal. I wish I would have played better. It's frustrating. For myself, it's not the way I wanted to have represented myself, my family, or of course this organization, and it's tough, but I'm going to learn from it. I don't think it gets much worse than that. So, I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to grind. I'm going to work my tail off to get better and play better, like I know I can. And so I'm going to give everything I can, to the guys on offense, to this team, and be the best me I can be from here on out.
Jake, what happened on the interception? It looked like you took a shot there. I don't know if it affected your throw, but what did you see in the moment?
That was tough. Just kind of felt something, happen there, kind of mid-throw, and but that's football. Stuff happens, and you just gotta respond and answer. I didn't respond and answer enough.
Jake, were you expecting to come out of the game when you did, or how did they present that?
Just got told by quarterback coach that gonna switch it up and put Mike in there, and that's just frustrating for myself. Just because I wish nobody. That any of the coaches would have, been put in that situation. I wish I would have gone in, handled my business, led us to victory, and we'd be having a nice ride home.
That sound from quarterback Jake Fromm was brought to you by Ford. It's tough to hear him, Paul, say, I don't think it gets much worse than that. It's a tough situation for a young quarterback getting his first career start. You got Fletcher Cox right across from you. You got Darius Slay locking down your receivers. You've been on the roster 26 days. What do you make of his comments?
Well, I think he talked about being really amped up. And there's such a thing as being too amped up. We've all played sports before, whether or not it's been at this competitive level or not. And there is such a thing as being so jacked sky high that, you know what? Things just start to unravel on you.
Right.
And that's what I was trying to say before, earlier in the program. I wonder if the Giants are still very interested in seeing what he could do a second time out after he got all these butterflies out of the way today. He started out this game 2 of 7 for 4 yards in the first quarter. And that just goes to what I'm talking about, because anybody who ever saw him play at the University of Georgia knows that's not a typical Jake Fromm stat line.
Absolutely. Finishes the day 6 of 17, 25 yards, and 1 interception. Tough first time out for the young quarterback, but I'm sure we will see more from him. The Giants pivoted to Mike Glennon early on in the second half. We'll now send it down to the podium where we'll hear from the veteran quarterback.
Obviously not how we envision it going, but you have to be ready at all times. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make the comeback. But, we'll keep fighting. 2 games left in the season. Come back to work on Wednesday and get ready to go.
And obviously you guys are commiserating on the sideline in between stuff, but what was going on with him?
Yeah, it just felt like it was tough to get something going, tough to get a rhythm. First start, it's not an easy job, playing in the NFL, and obviously there's some things that I'm sure he'd want back, but all in all, he handled himself really well this week, prepared really well. You felt his maturity and kind of presence. So, you know, it's been great working with him so far, and you know, unfortunately, didn't go as we envisioned.
It looked early on like he was just a little, I know he was kind of high and hard, you know, a couple of throws, and did he look to you a little bit jumpy, and did you try to calm him down at all?
I'm not sure. That's, you know, a better question for him.
We've got a lot more coming up on the program. Stay with us. After the break, we're going to hear from Lorenzo Carter. That and much more as Giants Postgame Live presented by Mercedes-Benz continues after this short break. As we wind down to the end of the season, don't miss your chance to snag some Giants merch. Enter the Giants Postgame Live Watch and Win sweepstakes to win a replica helmet signed by Sterling Shepard. To be eligible to win, just scan the QR code on the screen or go directly to msgnetworks.com. And don't forget to use this week's keyword, which is wideout, all one word, wideout. Sign up, use the keyword, and you could be the big winner this week. Good luck, and thank you for watching Giants Postgame Live. We welcome you back to the studio. The Giants fell to the Eagles 34-10. We send it down to Philadelphia to hear from Lorenzo Carter.
We just didn't execute. We got to execute on defense, execute on offense, and just make sure we keep that momentum rolling. We had a little bit, but obviously we didn't. We let some plays slip away and ended up going their way.
Lorenzo, when it's a 17-3 game, does that feel insurmountable? Should it feel insurmountable?
Nah, it doesn't feel insurmountable. And we weren't even, the scoreboard doesn't really matter that much to us, especially on defense. So we go out there, wherever they put the ball, we got to line up and play football, try to keep them from scoring. So that's our mentality every time. We don't worry about the scoreboard.
Obviously, you started a quarterback, you know, for his first time today. How difficult is that when the offense is struggling? I'm not looking for you to rip the offense, but just, you know, do you feel like you have to kind of win it on defense in a situation like this where, you know, you can see the other side of the ball struggling?
Yeah, we got to play complementary football at the end of the day. There are going to be times where offense has our back, we got their back, but at the end of the day, we got to be ready to go out there and play for each other. And, I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
Lorenzo, you haven't seen Jake have many tough days as quarterback. What was it like today? And did you say anything to him after?
Yeah, just make sure he keeps his head up. He's a young guy. Went out there and he had his shot, but, I mean, everything doesn't go your way. Sometimes it's tough out there, but we're playing professionals. They had a good day. And like I told him, just got to keep his head up, keep working.
What's changed for you in the last couple of weeks?
I don't think much. I think we're just playing aggressive, not really thinking too much, just going and just trying to do our part and make plays on defense.
How about you individually?
That sound from Lorenzo Carter was brought to you by Ford. That sweater was brought to you by the holiday spirit. Gotta love that holiday spirit from Zoe out there. Always a positive person around the locker room. And you love to see the individual success he's had, especially recently after rebounding from that Achilles injury.
You know, Madelyn, they usually tell you that it takes that second season before you can really physically make it back from a torn Achilles surgery. This, of course, is his first year coming off of the procedure. Now, last week he had the first multi-sack game of his career against the Cowboys. One of those sacks was a strip sack. He had a strip sack today against Philly, which means it's the first time in his career where he's had back-to-back games with strip sacks. So maybe Zoe is really starting to find himself now as we get towards December.
Absolutely.
And
as
January.
we see these players building those individual successes, and look forward to it all coming together for this Giants team in the future. All right, we've got a lot more coming up. Well, not a lot. We've got a final segment, and you'll hear our final thoughts. Stay with us on Giants Postgame Live, presented by Mercedes-Benz, the official luxury automobile of the Giants. Giants fans, check out the Eli Manning Show presented by Dunkin'. All you have to do is subscribe to the Giants YouTube channel to catch the latest episodes and all of the Eli extras. Eli Manning Show, Super Bowl winning, two-time Super Bowl MVP quarterback turned YouTube star, making quite the career for himself, and we've seen him get in all the shenanigans out there on the World Wide Web. Welcome back to the studio for Giants Postgame Live, presented by Mercedes-Benz. Dots, tough loss for the Giants today, 34-10 loss in Philadelphia, but you know what? Turn the page, on to next week. Giants are spending the new year in Chicago to face the Bears on January 2nd. As we can see here, a 1 p.m. kickoff in Chicago. We do know it will be cold.
And windy.
And we know that the Giants have a lot of things to evaluate on this roster.
Well, certainly, as Joe Judge said, there's going to be that competition during the week about who's going to be the starting quarterback. I do think we will see more of Jake Fromm at some point in the next 2 weeks. Whether or not he starts in Chicago, I don't know. But I think we will see more snaps. They're going to want to give him a second chance. But Kadarius Toney came back today after the 4 games off because of COVID and also the sore oblique.
Yes.
Now, he only got out there for some limited reps the last portion of the week. So he was very, very limited, and yet they still tried to work him in. They tried to get him the ball a number of times. This is a guy who, at this point in his rookie season, every snap he gets is incredibly valuable as he continues to grow and then build into the offseason. So I would expect that we're going to see a lot of Tony Fischel over the course of the last 2 games.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, too, for a rookie receiver like that to be developing chemistry with essentially 2 quarterbacks throughout the week as they go through this quarterback competition, and 2 quarterbacks who are both backup quarterbacks at this point. But also we got to talk about, Kenny Golladay. I think that they were trying to get him more involved as we've seen throughout the season. At some point, sometimes it feels like they're forcing it a little bit, but how do you get Golladay more organically involved there?
The situation with Golladay is really pretty simple right now. He's just one of the pieces of an offense that's struggling, and everybody is feeling that stubbing of the toe kind of thing. Whether or not they get him involved right now, I'll be honest, I don't think it's as important as it is getting Tony involved. Because we need to see Tony grow. We know what Kenny Golladay is. He's already had a 1,000-yard season. He's already been to the Pro Bowl. This guy has produced big time in this league before. He just needs to take an off season to get healthy, to rest up, and come back next year and show everybody the kind of receiver that he proved when he was with Detroit.
And with 2 games left in the season for the Giants, we know it's all kind of looking to the future. The Giants do own the Bears' first-round draft pick, so I think that's going to come into play. But I think that that's going to be a lot to build off as well as we look forward and move towards what's going to happen next season as well.
Well, again, young players, guys like Ojolari, Roche, McKinney. These last 2 games, again, this is all about experience for these guys.
Yeah.
And some of these young fellas, they hit the college wall. They got to push through it.
Paul Dottino, thanks for coming, joining on the show, and a special thank you to our incredible production staff working long hours, weekends, and holidays to get this show on the air. Thank you. Happy Boxing Day.